in person.
Good evening. I was testing. I'm in a new location. Can people hear me?
I can hear you.
I can hear you,
I
Kevin.
can see you.
Nikki, can you hear me okay? Testing the new Chromebook. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, I have 6:30 p.m., September 29th, 2020. Welcome to the Parkway Board of Education tax rate hearing. Let's see, we'll call to order and do a roll call first, but first, would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Nikki, would you please call roll?
Ms. Davis.
Here.
Ms. Hill.
Here.
Mrs. Hopper.
Here.
Dr. Ciartino.
Here.
Mr. Seltzer.
Here.
Mr. Schindler,
Here.
Mr. Todd.
I am here. Next, we have no public comments for this meeting. So may I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for the Board of Education tax rate hearing as scheduled for September 29th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. First up, well, only up, we have Patty Bedborough, Parkway CFO. Patty, would you like to take over?
Thank you, President Todd, Vice President Hopper, Board of Education Directors, Dr. Marty, Mrs. Stover. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak tonight about our taxes and just a brief story of why setting the tax rate. Oh, it says my host is disabled to allow me to screen. Jason, could you change that for me? Sorry about that. But why is it important that we are here tonight to set our tax rate? The tax rate, of course, is very important, not only for our school district, but school districts around the state of Missouri. It is, for Parkway, it is our main source of revenue. It makes up 74.6% of our operating revenues. So it is critical that not only our calculations are correct, but our budget is aligned to our projections as well. So to begin with, I'm going to tell you the story about our assessed valuation. So this year is a non-reassessment year, and sorry, the title on this page is incorrect. It has 2018 and 2019 assessed valuation. I am so sorry. It is really the change of 2019 assessed valuation and 2020 assessed valuation. So this is 2020, a non-reassessment year. So we have changes in our assessed values, sometimes from our settlements from our protested taxes, our new construction that has happened in the district, and then some reassessment that may have impacted property, perhaps based on additions, et cetera, to existing property. So for this year, we have a change, an increase to $73 million to our total property. It's a change of 1.42%. Our largest impact you will see is from our change in personal property. This doesn't necessarily change simply because there is additional property that is purchased, but certainly one portion of this in the calculations is based on the depreciation of existing property as well. But as you can see, we had growth in our residential property and our commercial property base as well. So here's a breakdown of our actual changes in our assessed valuation. So 53,665,390, that is our total from new construction. So as you can see, that broken out between the residential, the commercial, and the personal property. You'll also see the gain in assessed value from existing property of the 19,510,510. So part of that was actually a change from our TIF reduction was reduced. So then that increased our overall commercial property value. So that brought us to our change of the 73,175,000. In total, our assessed valuation for Parkway School District is just over $5.2 billion. And as I mentioned earlier, it's a 1.42% increase over prior year. If you drive through Parkway School District, you may think that our commercial value is higher than our residential, but in actuality, our residential homes make up 63.95% of our total assessed valuation. So our homeowners matter, as well as our students matter. Our commercial real estate makes up 24%, and our personal property makes up 11.93%. The balance of our property is from agricultural, which is 0.03%. And you may wonder, What kind of farms do we perhaps have in Parkway? Some of that agricultural land is actually our golf courses. So over the years, you have heard probably a broken record from me on our settlement of our protested taxes. So that impacts our collections on an annual basis. But one of the mechanisms that we have in place in order to capture some of those lost revenues is what's called the recoupment process. So from prior years, we had left over just over $3.1 million that we could levy for recoupment. This current year, as you know, fiscal year FY20 was actually one of our highest collection rate years in recent history. But we did have some taxes that were settled from protest, and we were able to recoup just over $100,000 from them. So our total recoupment levy is going to be a total of $3,259,351. The rates based on the property is 0.0022 for residential, 0.2524 for commercial, 0.0020 for agricultural, and a blended rate of 0.0622. And this is based on $100 assessed valuation. So one would say the blended rate is 6.22 cents per $100 of assessed valuation overall. One other item to discuss tonight is our voluntary rollback. As you know, back in, I believe, 2007, we had a ballot measure that increased our operating tax levy. From that point on, we have had various amounts in our voluntary rollback on our residential rate. With our latest calculation, we had 0.2355 cents on that residential rate, or about $7.9 million. Based on some of the fiscal challenges that we have in front of us, including the loss of the financial institution tax, it was agreed upon that we would take 9 cents of that levy, or just about $3 million, and take that from the rollback. So we still have a remaining 14.55 cents, or 0.1455, and that equates to about $4.9 million in that voluntary rollback. When we calculate our rate, not only from the state auditor's form, but we add in our recoupment and we take out our voluntary rollback, the calculator allows us to then levy these rates as our operating levy based on each of these property classes. Keep in mind, these are based on our operating levy, and our debt service levy of the 49 cents is in addition to this. So year over year, we have a very small impact. We actually have a 0.01 or 1 cent reduction in our overall combined rate. We have a slight increase in our residential rate. We have a rollback on our commercial rate that's based on the growth of the commercial, plus last year we had a bit more recoupment on that commercial rate than what we are calculating this year. When we look at this by property class and total levy, so meaning that the debt service is included in these rates, we have the exact same change from year to year because our debt service levy did not change. So we also have that recoupment that is based on our last year's recoupment that was left over, plus this current year calculation for recoupment. When we look at our residential rate, not only are we one of the lowest residential rates in St. Louis County, usually number 3 or number 4, we also know that it changes each year based on our growth or our sometimes rollback of our assessed valuation. So you can see this year, it is a slight increase in that residential rate compared to previous years. But if we go back 2 years ago, it's still quite a reduction from that rate because we did have reassessment growth in 2019 that we rolled back the residential rate substantially. We levy based on our property classes, but we actually report that levy and that income based on our funds. So we're fund accounting. So we break down the funds operating wise into either a general fund, the special revenue or teachers fund, or the capital projects fund. And then the non-operating fund that we levy into is the debt service fund. So when we look at our total rates, we're looking at assessing 1.2783 into our general fund, 2.3741 into our special revenue. We are not levying into our capital projects this year. We'll have the total operating of 3.6524. The debt service remains the same at 49 cents. So an overall blended rate of 4.1424. So one question you may have is, why are we not levying anything into capital projects this year? Traditionally, in the last few years, when we've received recoupment, we've taken those funds and levied them into our capital projects fund because they are essentially one-time money. They're not a guarantee for year over year. It's not recurring revenue. So we put it into the capital projects fund, not only to grow that balance, but also to use that and utilize it for one-time capital project needs. This year, while we could put that into the capital projects, we have many unknown budget items operating wise that we feel it is best to place the funding into our operating accounts, such as the general and special revenue. And if there are funds left over at the end of the year, we could transfer then to our capital projects fund. So it provides us flexibility in our budgeting and helps us hopefully to not deficit spend in our operating budget this year. So overall, what we really look at, what is the impact of our homeowner? As we stated earlier, over 65% of our assessed valuation is from our resident homeowners. So our home value that we use today is actually from our most recent bond profile. They went into economic data and found out that our average homeowner has a home value of $286,500. So I went ahead and used those numbers in order to build our example here. So I took the changes in our residential tax rate, not only from the home that our homeowners own, but also from their personal property, which mostly is their cars and vehicles that they own. The assessed valuation for a home is based on 19% of the actual market value. Personal property is based on 33% of the actual market value. So taking those calculations intact and then multiplying that by the current rates, subtracting what that would have been for last year's rates, the increase in our residential rate overall would have a projected $36 for the average homeowner. So while we want to avoid any increases in our residential taxes for our taxpayers, $36 is $3 a month. It does not seem like it is a huge burden for our taxpayers. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Patty, can you start to predict at all, like what this looks like next year? Or, is it really too early to be able to do that and the impact on, what's been happening?
So from a residential standpoint, I would say market value should be rather strong. Our home market is strong. If the word on the street is any home that is for sale usually is sold for more than the contract value, usually very quickly. So I think our residential market is rather strong. Our question mark is completely our commercial market. First and foremost, with COVID, we know that most companies, if they're an office building, needed to work remotely. And with working remotely, what are their decisions for going back or renewals on the rental property. That's all kind of in question. Then we look at either brick and mortar stores or we look at restaurants, and with their capacities changing and some of the implications from the economy, quite frankly, we don't know how much vacancy there will be on there. So I would say that I feel very strong that we'll have a positive assessed valuation increase for our residential property, but what we don't know is the short-term and then the long-term impact of our commercial value as well.
Thank you.
Patty, how did the fund balance affect any of these projections or numbers?
So certainly not directly, but we look at our budgeting with our goal in mind to have an increase of the 0.25% balance each year. So with that, when we're going through our budget, we start with our revenues. We look at, what are our projections, and then we look at our expected expenditures for the year. So this year in particular, we knew that we had the big loss of the financial institution tax, where that was almost a $4 million swing from one year to the next. We have allocated expenses that were reduced based on that. And then we planned to use part of the voluntary rollback in order to recover from that as well. And the reason, the timing for the voluntary rollback, it needed to be this year in a non-reassessment year, because that's what state statute allows. We really couldn't wait one more year to do that, because we would not be able to do that next year, because next year is the reassessment year.
Any other board members have questions for Patty? Okay, thank you very much, Patty.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. As I mentioned earlier, we had no public comments for this meeting. So may I have a motion and a second that the annual tax rate hearing be adjourned?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. We will see you all in about 10 or 11 minutes for the regular meeting.
Should we just leave this on or should we log out?
You may.